Tea time. Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. Now then, today's plans for any form of recording has been a little bit weird throughout, because I was originally going to be doing a recording of the Sea of Thieves beta, only to find out, I've got the code for it, but the beta is going to last for 5 days, but it's not this month. I may have uploaded the episodes by the point of this Tea Time uploads, but who knows, but it's a case of, those plans went awry, and there was another Tea Time I was going to record instead. I've realised, wait a minute, I've had it written down, and I've got all the information ready for it, but I haven't actually recorded it yet. I kind of forgot to record it. So I was getting ready to record that Tea Time instead. But as I was looking for teas to have, I found out that in my tea book, I have yet to actually drink any. I have yet to, jot down in my tea book, my very berry crush tea. You know, a fruity tea, which I've got with me today. It's quite strong, so I've only brewed it for 4 minutes of the 3 to 5 minutes recommendation. I would tell you more information, but in order to save on space in the house, Mum threw away all the boxes for the teas, and so all the tea bags are in this one container now. Where she can. So no box for it, so less information on it, but it's basically a really fruity, really strong fruity tea. I've got another one of these. This is the Wittard brand. I feel it's the better version over the Twinnings brand of sort of basically the equivalent of it that I happen to own. But in any case, I got this tea out, and that led me to think about Pokemon, because berries, Pokemon, one of my favourite little mechanics they introduced, and I wish they'd do more with it. And thinking about how I wish they would do more with it, well, that just naturally led to thinking of things I hope for in regards to Pokemon, particularly in the fact that it's getting a Switch release soon. And so, there we go. It's like I'd considered doing it as a tea time at some point, but yeah, I just came into the mood to record this tea time now. So this tea time is my hopes for Pokemon. And this is, of course, more specifically focusing on the games. Like, I hope that, of course, more continued support happens for Pokémon Tournament and all that, and, Pokemon still continues doing well as a franchise. I still naturally hope for a Pokemon trading card game to be available on the video game systems, because I really enjoyed the Game Boy. I think Game Boy Color Pokemon trading card game. Still know we never got the sequel, but, So this is more, like, focused on the mainline game's hopes. And I guess the way this video will go is that it kind of would be different if thinking about a remake. Like, we don't know what the next mainline Pokemon game is yet. It could very well be a remake. Either of Diamond and Pearl, the most likely ones to then be remade, or they could even go, hey, everyone really likes Kanto, and we don't, milk that nostalgia enough, let's do another Red and Blue again. They could do that sort of thing. But in the case of, say, it's a Diamond and Pearl remake, I will cover that sort of information, my hopes for it, if it is revealed to be a Diamond and Pearl remake. For now, I'm going to focus on it as a new game in of itself, and my hopes for basically Gen 8 rather than Gen 4 remakes, or whatever Gen remake they decide to do, but I'm assuming it'll be Gen 4 next, following the natural order. The only sort of hope I will clarify here is I hope they learn the lessons of Platinum when remaking Diamond and Pearl, because my opinion, as you may have heard from my previous Pokemon-related Tea Time video, I feel that, not the Nanka's Pokemon Mew, the Adventure one, but the one before that, I'm a big fan of Platinum. It's my third favourite Pokemon game, but I'm not a huge fan of Diamond and Pearl. Platinum was a huge step up from Diamond and Pearl and fixed a lot of the mistakes. So, I had my hopes for if it's a remake next, which would be really cool, is that they learn from the sort of situation of Platinum. Anyway, for my hopes for the next Pokemon game, which it's coming on Switch, it's going to be the first console-based mainline Pokemon game, which is amazing. Admittedly, a part of me kind of wished there was a Pokemon Coliseum free game made at some point, but now it kind of feels like that's going to be a redundant situation. Shame that, really. Quite like the Aura region. But yeah, my hopes for a mainline Pokemon game, and I think this is going to be particularly interesting because I wasn't a fan of Gen 7. I'm not a fan of Sun and Moon. It's, just after Gen 2 from the bottom sort of thing, unfortunately. There are various reasons for it, and some of them may be brought up in regards to this video. Now, of course, I could sort of say a specific region I'd like, but that'd be more like, I don't mind so much the region, so long as they make it interesting. I think a good way to at least help say apart is hoping that they don't put it in a sunny area like Alola. I feel Alola had a lot less impact because we just had Hoenn before. One tropical region to another tropical region unfortunately has less of an impact if Alola had come straight after Kalos sort of thing. They diminished the impact of it because of that sort of transition. So basically, my main hope is that it just isn't a tropical region. If I had to say specific regions I've always been quite partial to the idea of an India Pokemon region. I think that'd be really cool. My only worry is there may be an overabundance of legendaries, but, I don't think that's going to, whether there are legendaries or not are going to stop Game Freak from making tons of legendaries, because that seems to be the case they do nowadays. Of course, naturally, I'm a big fan of the idea of a UK-based Pokemon game. I actually written down basically 100 sort of Pokemon ideas and all this stuff and how I'd set the region as such. And, that actually my thinking of what would I do if I made a Pokemon game is actually the basis for a lot of my ideas here in terms of hopes for the next Pokemon game. Thinking about, what would I do if I made a Pokemon game sort of thing? What would I want for it? And, of course, the other area I'd probably like... Alola, there was a little bit of time where it was looking like Singapore was going to be the likely region for Gen 7. Of course, it then turned out to be Hawaii, which Alola was based off on. But there was a hotel that people said looked like it came from Singapore, and that gave me an interesting thought of, Singapore would be interesting. And, you're familiar, thanks to Lulu instead, you're a little bit more familiar with, say, Hawaii than you are Singapore, so I feel, even though it is a real place, there's a bit more of a mystical feel to it, because, of course, you don't get to see it in media as much, sort of thing, so I think that'd be really cool. Anyway, on to more ideas and mechanics for the Pokemon game. Let's see, one idea that, of course, naturally comes to mind is difficulty. I want there to be a hard mode introduced into the game. As a natural thing from the start. Black and White 2 was a good step in having it, but they made it really asinine in trying to actually unlock it. A hard mode from the get-go would be great. People say, I wish we could have a Nuzlocke mode. No, a Nuzlocke mode, that's never going to happen. But you can at least make a hard mode, increase the levels, have some trainers whose Pokemon were unevolved be evolved now, give them certain counter sort of moves that they can learn through TMs, that sort of thing. Gen 7 had a very inconsistent difficulty. It was, for the most part, very easy. Trainers lacked a lot of Pokemon, but then it had lots of strange difficulty spikes. Ilma at the start was a heck of a challenge from, jump in difficulty. Going through the Aether Foundation was a heck of a jump in difficulty. Though then there's the really weird part where Luzamine, despite having 5 Pokemon, only has 3 moves for each of her Pokemon. Raffi had a funny situation with that. But yeah, and of course... Hey, you know what we need Slandites with? Dragon Rage! But yeah, very odd Gen 7 ones with difficulty. What I'd like is a more consistent difficulty and the option for difficulty. Difficulty options are always a great idea, and I feel that'd be really cool. On that basis, aside from adding more difficulty, something I'd like really cool is some introductions into the battles themselves. Now, the core formula is great. I don't want to change that to any sort of significant degree, but I would like things that have been capable of being done in the anime to be capable of doing in the game. Mainly, evolving in battle. I want to level up against the gym leader or my rival, and they're about to send their next Pokemon, and it's like, dun dun, my Pokemon's evolving, because that would be mind-blowing awesome. I've always wanted to do that. That would be so cool, particularly after a tough battle and your Pokemon evolves in the middle of a fight, like the anime. That would be so wicked. You can do it with moves. You can learn a move in the middle of a battle. So I want to be able to evolve my Pokemon in the middle of a battle. That would be amazing. They level up and then they evolve. Another thing I'd like is having certain areas. There's certain environmental things that you could target with your attacks. Say there's a cracked floor. Instead of attacking the Pokemon, damage the floor, Pokemon sort of falls in sort of thing. It's something like that, not all the time, but it added a sort of certain dynamic sort of feel to some of the battles. Say if in Black and White 2, when Gehias, he has the staff which stops you from using Pokeballs, say you could target the staff, knock it out of his hands, destroy it sort of thing. Something like that would be really cool. Maybe sort of have trainers and such, have a bit more of an impact via that way. Not obviously hitting the trainer, but the trainer is trying to stop something like that. Speaking of trainers, that's also something I'd quite like. I felt it was a very missed opportunity that in the DS Pokemon games, they didn't really put the stylus to much use. I would really love, with the Nintendo Switch, with its motion controls and all, say fishing. Fishing could be great fun in Pokemon. I feel I missed it in Black and White, but at the same time, it's not very entertaining to do in of itself. But you could easily make fishing a really fun thing. Breath of Fire 4, I loved fishing, and Kyrus was obsessed with it. But yeah, fishing, you could use the motion controls to do it, or make it a little bit of a game. Catching Pokemon, don't leave it just to the chance of the Pokeball this time. Instead, have it that your trainer gets to throw the Pokeball. Now, actions with you. Now, I'm not saying, oh, buff your Pokemon's moves to the attacks. What I'm saying is that actions your trainer does, whether it be, doing the fishing, using the Poke Flute, or any of the flutes, throwing the Pokeball sort of thing, those sort of things could be done via trainer's actions with, before I would suggest the touchscreen, but now with the motion controls instead, add a little skill element to some of these factors instead of just pure luck sort of thing, and make it more engaging for when you decide to do those sort of commands instead of just selecting the button sort of thing. And I feel that'd be a good way whilst not stepping over the boundaries of the core sort of attacks and such the Pokemon do themselves. Another thing I'd like, maybe as a part of a difficulty option or as simply the option in hard mode, is I'd really like it if in sort of the gym battles and such, you could do as the anime does, again, going back to the anime sort of thing, and have it so that you could have set amounts of Pokemon in the battle. So not that you have to keep going back and forth to your PC to do it, but you can only use the same Pokemon as the trainer or gym leader sort of does. Not for every battle, just key battle sort of things. I think that'd be really cool. I'd really like the idea. Make it so you're fighting on a fair plane, as it were. I mean, some people wouldn't want to have it, because they want to have, meat shields, as it were, or they're trying to train up a Pokemon, and fair enough, that should be something you could slide on and off sort of thing. And I think that'd be a really cool idea, particularly without having to go back to the PC and all every time. A lot of features are sort of features I want to keep returning as well. Like, I want to make sure, what I'd really like to see in the next Pokemon game is contests remain. I'd want, basically the two big sort of extra game modes, as it were, three big sort of ones that I'd like to see back in some form of fashion are Pokemon contests, because I feel they're really cool. I like doing them all. I really like how Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire had a whole story mode to it. I feel that it takes ages to sort of do it because you're going through the Pokemon adventure and your Pokemon's moveset is designed to be helpful in battle, not necessarily for the contests, which is a shame. So it feels like you kind of have to raise a whole separate set of Pokemon most of the time. But still, I really like contests and all, and I hope they actually do feature consistently throughout the series again, because if they were able to go from Gen 3 to Gen 4, so they're not a exclusive sort of feature, so they should pop up again, and I'd like to see them, have their own story and such, and build on the ideas they had for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. That was a key point in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire that they just nailed perfectly. Another little factor that I'd like to see return in some form is something as fun and interesting as the Pokestar Studios. That was a lot of fun. I liked doing that sort of thing. Something they could take from it and actually incorporate into regular battle sort of things would be how there were opponents which weren't Pokemon. Not like the UBs which you can catch with beast balls or whatever, but as in you had like robot fights, or fights against the Dark Lord or the Evil Queen. Not against Pokemon, just these robots and such, which is really cool. Nothing you could catch, just obstacles to bash out your way. And of course I like all the costumes you can get in the Pokestar Studio thing. Sadly you couldn't wear them outside of the studio. That would have been awesome. Let's see, the other things I quite like from the returning games, which don't feature all the time. Join Avenue was a feature I absolutely love. I wasn't a huge fan of the Festival Plaza. Raffi in particular wasn't a huge fan of it. I liked it because it felt like Join Avenue was returning, but it was kind of just elsewhere, and it's like some weird pocket dimension. I liked that it was a consistent location. You could make it easier ways to just be able to transport there back and forth, but Black and White 2 did it best in my opinion, and I like the idea of that, and it can be expanded upon, but not in a weird way like they did with the Festival Plaza in Sun and Moon. And I guess I'd say another feature I'd like to see return, inverse battles. X and Y had for some reason introduced these sky battle things, which were really restrictive because you could only use flying Pokemon in them, and then a lot of flying types or Pokemon who could learn fly couldn't actually participate them. It was really irritating. I had to try and take on every single one with Vivillon, and Raffi missed out on tons of them because he had no Pokemon which could actually participate. So, I say by turn, all of them. But then, for some reason, they also had inverse battles in the game. Only one trainer, and inverse battles are awesome. They're amazing. Why aren't inverse battles the thing focused on in X and Y instead of sky battles? Inverse battles are actually interesting, and all the Pokemon can participate. So I'd want inverse battles to be a more regular thing, and have the occasional trainer do it, sort of thing. Sort of like how you'd have the occasional trainer with Z-moves or the occasional double battle. Inverse battles should populate the region. Maybe a couple every few sort of gym. One every sort of few gym or so. That'd be really cool. Okay, got a little bit more I can talk about in regards to hopes for Pokemon, but I'm going to first try some of my tea, which is a little bit counterproductive because I've had this tea before. I'm just going to make sure that I brewed it for the time that I feel is worth brewing it for. Very sharp, strong taste to it. It's very fruity. The point of brewing it for 4 minutes, if you brew it for 3, you risk it being a bit too weak. But do not go for... My personal recommendation is, particularly if it's your first time trying, do not go for 5. That makes it way too strong. That can overpower you a bit. It's got a really nice flavour to it. Really nice. The only problem I'd say with this tea, aside from the, you have to get the brewing just right, is the flavour disappears really quickly. You get a really nice sort of strong flavour, but it only lasts a few seconds. It doesn't stay on the tongue for long. Your tip of your tongue is going to receive all of that. Well, the front of your tongue. And then this flavour won't settle on the tongue. It's not going to rest. It's going to go away pretty quickly. But it's good. It's good. I like Very Berry Crush. Not one I have all the time, but it's nice to have. Anyway, back onto some Pokemon topics or things. I've kind of reached past my 15 minutes here, but I guess, I can say a few things. For Pokemon, I don't mind too much, as long as they make them interesting and useful. Don't try to make one which is clearly overpowered than everything else. That does kind of get rather annoying. Hope they have fun with the stars and such. And of course, unique typings I always like to see more of. Particularly unique typings that are over ones which aren't done. Even if it's unique typings which are the case of, they've been done, but only the legendaries have them sort of thing. I'd like to see common Pokemon have some of those sort of typings as well. Not just the legendaries sort of thing. Other elements I would like to see... Well, in regards to the difficulty thing, I think Black and White, like most things Black and White did it best when it came to the difficulty of how to find harder Pokemon. In Sun and Moon, they did this really annoying thing called SOS battles, which was frustrating as heck because it just kind of prevented you from catching Pokemon. Meanwhile, in Black and White, to add difficulty, they had dark grass areas, and there were sometimes extra items you could find past them, but you risk having to go through the dark grass areas to find them and risk fighting stronger opponents. At the same time, you can get really cool Pokemon and level up a lot from going to those dark grass areas sort of thing. And a lot of them were optional areas, or, if you fall off from here, you enter the dark grass area and have to fight. Those were really cool. I really like those ideas, Good way. I like the sneaking in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire as well. I'm not sure how they'd bring that back, but I think it'd be cool if they could, as a decent way to get Pokemon with the hidden abilities, because otherwise it's just a real pain trying to get hidden ability Pokemon. And let's see here. Anything else? There was something on the tip of my tongue that I was thinking about. Something on the top of my head. Nah, I can't think of it. If I do so at any point, I will try to record it at some other time and just randomly throw it on the video. In any case, I've got some hopes for Pokemon. Although Sun and Moon was a big letdown to me, to the point where I don't even want to try out the Gen 7, the already remade Gen 7. Yeah, the things Rafi has told me didn't really excite me. I feel they kind of messed up the story in parts which are actually good to me in Gen 7. Not got much interest there, so I was a little disappointed, and I didn't have a huge amount of fun with Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Decent time, but with Pokemon, I've always got some sort of grounding with it. The core concept is always great, and so I've still got hope. I've got a lot of hope towards the Pokemon Gen 8 to really sort of win me over sort of thing, and I just hope they can sort of thing. I've been, a little bit low on Pokemon in terms of the recent games, and it's actually been the past games, playing them through with Nanka's Pokemon Miiverse Adventure, which has kept me excited about the series. So I'm hoping that Gen 8 of Pokemon can, continue the excitement I've been feeling from my Nanka's Pokemon Miiverse Adventures. So then, what are your thoughts of some of my ideas, and what are some of your hopes regarding the new Pokemon games? What do you hope for them? Oh, now I remember the thing I was talking about. Differences! Version differences! Ironically, the whole basis of when I was writing out my own Pokemon game idea. It's version differences. I want key version differences. You got a trade? Make sure it's a different trade. I want version exclusive Pokemon. You've got like over 700 Pokemon. You can make a good amount of them different. Have like different situations with the villains and such. Different characters are your rivals depending on which version. Not that they're so different that you can't tell them apart. Different thematics and such. I want Ruby and Sapphire did that so well. Not as well as they could have done. There was a bit more they could have done with it. But, I want a sort of combination of the differences Ruby and Sapphire offered with the differences that Black and White offered. Black and White didn't offer so much in terms of the world itself, but I like the ideas of theming being different. The ideals of truth versus, well, ideals. Ideals versus truth. I thought that was a really cool idea. And the Ruby and Sapphire, you know, having different sort of enemy teams and such, you know. I want more of that in Pokemon, you know, differences between the versions and such, to really emphasize a, you know, need to trade with other people, or people who want to play the game twice, a different, you know, reason to own both versions. With exception to Ruby and Sapphire, I honestly would say there's not a reason to own both versions, initial versions of any of the Pokemon games. You might as well get the first one, and then get the third version as it later gets released. But, yeah. That was what I wanted to remember. Yeah. I guess I could also go into story elements I'd like to see, but basically what I'd like is a challenging rival, and friends I like. So combine, I don't know, the rivals of, say, you know, the difficulty of, say, Barry at least in Gen 4, with, you know, the sort of rivals you like in Gen 5 and Gen 6. Like, I like the rivals in Gen 6, they're just kind of terrible at Pokemon battles. Anyway, I hope this all fits in nicely within 20 minutes, so, yeah, tell me your thoughts. Yeah, tell me your thoughts. What do you hope for in the future Pokemon games? And tell me what you think about my thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheerio, everyone!